Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday today. Oh my goodness. Yesterday morning, I was so confused. Um, when I watched back as I was putting that video up, I was like, it's not Thursday, and I'm not going shopping tomorrow. Today is Thursday, and I will be doing a JC in-store shop tomorrow. So I I don't know what. It's been hard getting used to that medication and then not sleeping and all of that. But last night, I actually slept very well. I had several dreams last night, which means I got into a deeper sleep than I have been in years. Um, I did get a little bit of help from our doctor. Um, so there you go. Okay. I have to speak about this, obviously. When I did my video yesterday evening, I had just got done doing chores and I hadn't been watching the TV. I hadn't been watching anything. I was very, very busy yesterday. And so when I did sit down and turn on the news, I never saw anything about a school shooting. I had no idea that it had happened. So Charlie Kirk's assassination overshadowed children being killed in school again. And I guess I needed to bring that up because, that to me is more important than Charlie Kirk being assassinated. And maybe that sounds callous. I just I can't help that because I know what Charlie Kirk stood for and I detested him. I mean, that's the truth. So, the shooting that occurred in the school, my heart goes out to the families, the other children who have been traumatized, and just the whole community in that area. Every time a school shooting happens, my heart goes out, my thoughts, so on and so forth. And I, I felt really bad once I did go back because I had one of my subscribers say something about a school shooting, and I was kind of confused. So when I read that comment, I went in and started looking, and I found it. And I apologize to my viewers for not realizing that that had happened. But I can't watch the news 24/7. I can't stay on, just social media 24/7. But you know what else? I never saw it on the media until I started digging. I never saw any MAGA influencers talk about the school shooting. It was all about Kirk. So I do apologize that I didn't know about the school shooting, and all I had known about was the assassination of Kirk. I apologize. Because when someone says you must tolerate gun deaths in support of the Second Amendment, I, I don't have, I, you know, I don't have any empathy or thoughts and prayers for him. I do have empathy towards his family, his two children and his wife. I do. I mean, it's tragic. She's a young woman with two very young children, and that's the compassionate part of me. I do have empathy for her. I have more empathy and such for all of the families and children involved in yesterday's school shooting. That should be top priority because Charlie Kirk made his stand that we must accept deaths if we're going to have an armed country. And with that, I'm going to read just a very small portion of Matthew 26:52 from the Bible. Those that draw the sword will die by the sword. And I'm going to translate that into today's issues. Is if you want to live by the gun, then you will die by the gun. His lack of empathy for families and children that have been murdered in school, gunned down, causes me not to have any empathy for him. You know, and the reason I pull up a Bible verse is because I saw influencers, MAGA influencers yesterday and into the evening as I really started going into, what had happened yesterday that I was unaware of because I was busy. I didn't have time to watch TV. I didn't have time to be on social media yesterday because I had so much to do. And my animals and my farm are very important. You know, Tashir and I went on our excursion yesterday. She got treats from the pharmacy, which she thought was Dunkin' Donuts, which it wasn't, but they gave her treats. We went to Tractor Supply. She got a bath. She got treats. She got to pick a toy. She got to pick a chew. We got home. She had lunch we did go and get drive-through where she got her big cup of ice water, and I got stuff to bring home for lunch for the husband and I and her, and we sat and we had lunch together, the three of us. So yesterday was all about Tashir here at the house, plus my chores that I had to do, which I'm finishing up now, because once I did that video, I was like, wait a minute. And so I stopped my chores and started diving in. So I'm finishing up today the things that I had mentioned that I had to do yesterday. I did get all the peppers processed, by the way. I ended up with 2 really nice bags of julienne peppers and 2 really nice bags of diced peppers. And I ended up freezing a whole gallon bag of spinach for my drinks and cooking and so on and so forth. So I did get that finished, but I didn't get to sweep. I didn't get to mop. I didn't get to do those things I need to do. There's some organizing I need to do in the kitchen that I need to get done. But I just wanted to let you all know that the reason I didn't mention the school shooting was because I had no idea about it. But the influencers, the MAGA influencers that are, blaming liberals and blaming, the violent talks of liberals and this and that and the rhetoric, there is no other more violent group than MAGA in this country. You can talk about gangs, so on and so forth, but they normally fight amongst themselves, right? MAGA, I have to remind you of January 6th, beating cops, threatening to kill the vice president, Pelosi. What about, you know, all of the attempts on people's lives, like Pelosi's husband, Trump? Both assassination plots were right-wing fanatics. We don't know who this person is. We don't know what the ideology is of this person. And there's something else I want to dismiss. I've seen a lot of liberals talking about, well, it's, and Republicans, which really annoys me because if you own guns, you know that you don't have to be specially trained to take a rifle and make a dead-on shot at 250 yards. You know that. I can shoot a walnut out of a tree at 250 yards with a rifle that has a crosshair scope. I used to be able to shoot the lid of a milk jug at 100 yards with just a simple 22 long rifle. Shoot the head of a squirrel hunting with peep sights, sometimes through leaves. So get it out of your head that this was targeted by some trained person. If you have guns, you know that is not true, because if you have a gun, you know how to shoot it, right? Come on, MAGA. You know it was no sharpshooter. I also saw someone in another comment stream on another channel say that it had to have been a marksman or, you know, a military trained person. Really? In World War II, do you realize that they loved getting the Appalachian boys that squirrel hunted to be their snipers? Yeah. Squirrel hunters are great snipers because we know how to sit back, take our breath, and do a clear headshot. Unless you like eating squirrel brains. I mean, it is what it is. And most oftentimes when you squirrel hunt, if you use buckshot, then you're going to have to hopefully get that out before you cook it. So when I was squirrel hunting, I used my 22, little 22 long rifle. Target Master, by the way. And I still have that gun. So when they say that it has to be a marksman, I also heard someone say that it had to be the deep state. What deep state are you talking about? The deep state that is now in our administration? I mean, when you speculate and you say things like it has to be a military trained person, or it has to be a deep state person, or it has to be a liberal, or it has to be a Republican, you don't know. I did see the video of the full thing. I did. It's disturbing. You know, growing up with military men and guns in every corner of the house and closet, and there were guns everywhere. As a kid, you were taught, you know, you don't touch them. But you're also taught of what that gun's going to do. And I was taught never to point a gun at anybody. It was even hard for me to point, you know, a water pistol at somebody. I remember the first time I went on a paintball fun time down here, and it's like, I think it's on the Indiana side. It is on the Indiana side down towards the Ohio side. First time I went paintballing, I had a hard time shooting people with that, because that is how ingrained it was in me not to point guns at people, because I knew what they would do. You know, my first coon hunt, I was 3 years old. I knew what shooting an animal did. So when you listen to liberals say, well, it has to be a marksman, number one, they've never handled a gun. Number two, when you hear MAGA say, well, it has to be a deep state liberal, well, you don't know that. But what I will say is I'm upset that I didn't know about the school shooting, because Kirk's assassination was more important to the media than children being gunned down in school, who didn't say the things that we have to get over, or just accept gun violence when you have an armed country. In the Second Amendment, I the Second Amendment is about defending yourself. The Second Amendment is about being able to pick up arms against a bad administration, like England when we wanted our independence. I was really disappointed in a couple of influencers that I used to watch. Um, Upset that the rights that this man had, the statements that this man had made about accepting school shootings, accepting the violence, and then kind of shifting everything to gang violence and kind of shifting everything to the black population being the biggest um, gun violent group. That's not true. If you want to know the truth, look up the statistics of who shoots who, how, why, and when, and where. It's normally white men. You know, they're talking about taking guns away from trans people. 2 out of how many school shootings? So I want to apologize for not mentioning the school shooting yesterday, but I had no idea about it. Like I said, all I saw was Kirk. I never saw anything about the school shooting. And I apologize for that. Because that school shooting, in my opinion, required more empathy than Charlie Kirk. All right, y'all have a great day. Hugs from a distance. I got to go finish some stuff. I didn't get to make my peppers yesterday, so I've already got my peppers in the little container. I'm going to give you a hint about making stuffed peppers. Um, if you put them in the microwave and steam them a little bit and kind of knock that um, thickness down a little bit on the peppers before you stuff them and bake them, it makes them better. Y'all have a great day. Hugs from a distance. Be safe. And just realize what kind of a world we're in right now. Not just our country, it's the whole world. We're in shambles. Bye, y'all.